The greatest journey of all is to go within and discover what's already within inside us. We look through the lens of our minds, the ways in which our minds have been formed by our previous associations and impressions that we've gathered, and it becomes a lens. Epictetus, one of the Greek philosophers, said, "We don't see the world the way it is, we see the world the way we are." What can we see, really? We just look through tiny little slits in our head. We hear some sounds in a certain sound spectrum, the light spectrum, we can only see partially. So how to go deeper? How to find out what's beyond just the noise or what we perceive to be patterns in this world? What's beneath them? What's causing them all? Why is there a cosmos? Cosmos literally means that there's some order, that you can interpret it. In fact, all the ologies in the world, like, say a few ologies.
Side of
Cosmology,
physio,
biology, psychology, sociology. Would it?
biology,
Okay, biology. The ology part comes from a word called logos, which is a theory that there's order in the universe. Otherwise, you couldn't study it, couldn't look at it, you couldn't do any controlled experiments to see how it works if it was simply random. And there's a sense when we come to the human form of life that there's more to be discovered. This is part of the teachings, the ancient wisdom literatures, which say that the human form of life is a juncture, a time in which we can find out more about ourselves and our origin. So one of the first sayings in the ancient wisdom literatures that you can live by, according to the ancient sages, is a tato brahma jignasa, which means now that you've come to the human form of life, you can inquire. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the power of the question. I wrote something about it recently for my own edification. Went into the subject somewhat so that I could use it in my own life effectively. Does that sound like a fair way to jump into a conversation? It's okay? Permission to proceed?
yeah,
So, well, it looks like the first slide says the 4 questions. So that probably means there's 4 questions, all right, Tom? And it says Pathway to Inner Peace. And it's a workshop. That means I hope to give you something practical to take away with. Now, do I slide to the left or up and down? Fair enough. We were at a few minutes ago. Literally, do you remember a few minutes ago? What was I talking about? I was talking about aphorisms. They're called sutras. They're very practical. It's knowledge condensed into a single phrase, so you could take it with you wherever you go. And there's a book called the Gnata Sutras. It's full of sutras which define a body of intelligent thinking and philosophy that's been passed down over ages and that is put into condensed form. All you have to do is add water and it expands. The water is our own investigation at that is the sutras. Sutra also means a thread. And if you've ever followed a thread with someone philosophically, like in a social group, it can go to many, many places. So you'll see on the screen under the Veda, and Veda literally means knowledge. And that Veda is a culture of inquiry. So here's the sutra. It's written in Sanskrit, but it's Romanized. Sanskrit's a different alphabet, and it's called Devanagari. But this is written in such a way that we can interpret it if we speak English and read English. So it says, Tato Brahma Jignasa. Would you like to try saying it?
Tato Brahma Jigyas.
When you see a dash, a line over an A, it means you hold it twice as long as other A's. And so I'll say it word by word. Tato Brahma Jignasa.
Jignasa.
So this is the first aphorism, and it says that now is your time to inquire, and it's speaking to us as humans as we come into a special portal through which we can understand everything if we inquire. So it's inviting us to ask big questions. So atato means therefore. Now that you've come to this special portal of being in a human body, tato Brahma. Brahma means ask about the biggest thing possible, like questions that you might have hesitated before because you thought, oh, nobody can answer that. Have you ever thought of a question and you thought, nobody can answer that? I experienced when I was a kid, I wanted to know why I had to die. And I think it vexed my parents a little bit, because sometimes I'd say, why do you have to die? Why do I have to die? And it's like, what happened? So did you drink something? And they couldn't answer me, and that wasn't something I learned in Burton School, where I went first through sixth grade, nor in Marywood, and then Del Valle High School. I did ask a lot of teachers, including Mr. King. He taught Spanish, but everyone said he was some kind of sage or something like that, and I asked him. He even didn't know. So I was surprised that there was a question that couldn't be answered. And what this aphorism is saying, don't give up, because there's an answer to everything. And you're in a new form of life. Use that to inquire deeply. Don't be dissuaded by superficial answers that you might get from those who haven't investigated. There is an answer. So, here's the story of the musk deer. The musk deer, this is a male musk deer, has a gland that emanates musk, which is one of the most sought after fragrances on the planet. And as the story goes, the musk deer is attracted by the scent of musk. And he looks in the forest, sometimes goes to the waterways, climbs at the top of craggy peaks to try to find the source of that intoxicating scent of musk. All the while, it's emanating from his own navel. Doesn't know where it's coming from. Beautiful scent. And in a similar way, as the sages pass this story down to us from antiquity, we have a natural desire to see the most beautiful thing, to experience something that is sublime. In fact, people try in various ways to have peak experiences in this world, to test the limits of their happiness and find out, could it go higher? Unfortunately, many of these end up in habit patterns that seem to diminish in pleasure over time. And so what the sages say is that the happiness we're looking for is within ourselves. We don't have to go anywhere particularly except for nigama, which means inside. Ni means in, and gama means go. It'll be on the quiz. So my teacher, whom I met in 1973 when I was in high school, had offered the ancient literatures, including the Bhagavad Gita, which I found and resonated with so deeply that I decided to dedicate my life to the process of bhakti yoga. And he had made the statement, there is a need of a clue as to how humanity can become one in peace, friendship, and prosperity to the common cause. And that has to do with using life for its highest purpose. And now I would like to talk about punctuation. What kinds of punctuation can you think of? Question mark, comma, semicolon,
Full stop.
full stop, period, exclamation mark. Semicolons, exclamation marks, you can't use them too much. Otherwise, you look like a nut. I mean, the exclamation points. Semicolons, okay, if that's your style, but they're a little ugly. In any case, my case I'm building here is the most powerful punctuation mark out of all of them is the question mark. As an example, if you are in conversation with someone, for instance, back and forth on emails. Anybody still do email? One person? No? Oh, yes. Okay. And let's say you write somebody an email and you go to question mark at the end or in one of the sentences. Do they have to write you back? Yes. If you don't put a question mark, they don't have to write you back. Because you didn't ask them anything. So in this sense, a question mark is a hook. In fact, rhetoricians say that whoever's asking questions in a conversation is leading the conversation. The question mark literally looks like a hook, and when we're speaking, we're asking questions, we're leading the conversation in a certain direction. Well, the sages who talk about the process of self-realization say that we, as sentient beings, can ask questions that pull the answers of the universe closer to us. And then there's the search for happiness. I just thought I'd show this graphic because I like it. There's a way in which we can go deeper with what's within us in the search for happiness. And questions help us find our way deeper and deeper through the world. So you can start your spiritual quest by asking questions. You might be interested to know where the word question comes from. From hearing the word, does it resonate in any way? Is there a word within the word that indicates anything like, well, if I give the analogous sentence or word, then probably I'll give it away. Well, what do you analyze about the word question? What are the words in that? Quest. Yes. Literally, the question starts quest or a journey. And in fact, there's a way in which if you look at the etymology of the word question, it goes back to a time when it's mentioned that there's a search for the Holy Grail, the quest. And it all starts by an inquiry. If you make an inquiry, then you're digging, you're going deeper, you're finding out something you didn't know before. In fact, the Socratic method is well known. Socrates had a technique that's still used today. In fact, Harvard almost exclusively uses this teaching technique of asking questions. You keep asking and asking till you go deeper and deeper. So the sages use this for finding out more about not only themselves, but their origin. Where do I come from? And the first question, what is my purpose? If I ask this question, then I stimulate something within me that's quite natural. As a human, we do sense that we have a purpose. It may be hard to discover. There may be ways that vocationally we inquire, what should I be doing right now? Should I go into finance or high tech or the humanities and so forth? There's an overarching purpose, say the ancient wisdom literatures, and the way to discover what it is to ask the question, what is my purpose? Dare we try it? You want to do it as a group? It's a little scary to ask this question, but it could start a quest that goes into something we weren't expecting. Do you feel brave? You want to try it? We'll say it all together. Kind of make a deep inquiry when you say this. Like, let's say you feel that there's someone listening on the other side that's super intelligent that can give you the answer. And then ask this question, and then it'll come back to you, the question. Maybe not immediately, but as soon as you ask a question, it goes out. And the idea behind this is that the universe is intelligent because there's an intelligence behind it. And that intelligence means it's personal and it's responsive. So if we ask a question, it won't go unanswered. We're not in a void. But when we register that question, it'll call to us a sense of our very purpose in life. Having given that preamble, should we try it together?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's vote. How many would like to try it and participate? I think it's close to unanimous. Okay, ready? We'll ask together. 1, 2, 3. Love above us. And how do you feel now? You did something consequential. You asked a question. And according to the ancient sages, it will always come back to you. This is the first step in 4 questions. And it has to do with dharma. Dharma comes from a root word in Sanskrit, which means that which sustains us. If we go down to our very foundation, we're not our fingernails, because fingernails can come and go, right? And we're not any of the limbs of our body. There's something deeper, an essence beyond just the physical or even the mental, that is a eternal spiritual essence that we are. And that has a connection somewhere. And I'll give you an example that my teacher used to give that resonated with me very deeply, because it's so simple, but it's something we can apply with thinking of this question of what is my purpose. As you see in this picture, there's a tiny screw. So my teacher was saying the tiny screw, when it's connected to the machine for which it was made, is purposeful. It is significant. When it falls out and it's lying in a place where it's disconnected, people don't even know where it is, it just fell out of the machine, then how valuable is the screw? Approximately how much can you get for it on eBay? Not much, right? And when you reconnect the screw to the machine, then it becomes valuable because of its connections. So this is one of the meanings of dharma. Dharma means where we connect, where we have our highest value, where we realize our highest value, how we connect. And that's the meaning of yoga. The previous speaker was talking about Bhakti Yoga and its connection. So how to make that connection? That's called dharma. What is our dharma? What sustains us in the deepest level? And that means finding that and reconnecting. And I have to say, I was just in New York before this, and I was standing outside the building we were staying in. I found, my wife could be a witness, I found a little screw on the ground in New York City. I picked it up, brought it with us, and I think we were both feeling sorry for it. Like, where did you come from? You've probably had a mighty purpose somewhere that fell out. And we were relating it to this example that we all belong somewhere that's highly significant. And how do we fit in? There are a lot of superficial purposes in this world. And that brings me to the story of the cat and the basket. Once there was a teacher, and he was showing his students how to perform a complex wedding ceremony. And I can relate to this because we were in Italy a few days ago, and we were staying in this very remote village for a meeting we were attending. And we got in late at night from our flight, and we were sleeping, and all of a sudden, I felt something on my legs. And my wife woke me up, said, "Oh, wake up." And I woke up, and there was a cat sleeping on my legs, going, and like, "Hey, kitty, what's up?" And And so this story involves the cat as one of the main characters. That's what I brought it up. So the cat was part of the rehearsal because it kept coming through a crack in the window. And it was playing with some of the implements they were using for the wedding. And as the teacher noticed that the cat was putting things out of order, a cat, being a cat lover, brought the cat a little basket and a bowl of some more milk. Cat drank it. He petted the cat. Cat fell asleep in the basket. All the while, the students were noticing how he was setting up for the ceremony. And sometime later, when the teacher was no longer there, the students got together to form their first complex wedding together. And as they were setting up, one of them cried out before the wedding started, "Wait a minute, I see it right here in my notes. We have to have a cat in a basket. Otherwise, we can't start the ceremony." And so they went and found a cat, brought it in, got some milk, put it in the basket, put it to sleep, said, "Okay, now we can start." And as the story goes, generations later, they still have to have a cat in the basket in order to start their ceremonies. There's a way in which we often miss the real purpose of why we're doing something. We don't know why we're doing it. It's just by cultural momentum that's been passed down to us. We call this the cat in the basket syndrome. Why are we doing certain things? There are certain rituals people do. Say, why are you doing it? And no idea. So what everyone's always been doing. So the Vedas ask us to inquire so deeply that we go beyond the superficial. Just ritual for ritual's sake is not accepted. They want the core value of who we really are, and we want you to discover that. And that brings to one of the principles of the ancient sages that they bring from these literatures, like the Bhagavad Gita, which is another Sanskrit word that's quite interesting. You see Y-A-J-N-A, and normally that would have a squiggle over the N, and you pronounce it like this, Vyagya. You want to try? Yep, no. It means sacrifice. Sacrifice has a root of the word sacred. And it means doing something for a higher cause. And it means knowing that there is a higher purpose to what you're doing. And making some kind of offering out of gratitude. And when we're living in yajna, we come to discover our real purpose in life. So I have the first part of the workshop for you. 2 bucks? Ready for some little thought work? Okay, 3 people said yes. Everybody else, you should cover your ears, or there's snacks available upstairs. Okay, so this is an experiment that I invite you to try. You don't have to do it right now, but make a note of it because it is life-changing. When you go home and you have a little time, or as would say, chalk out at least an hour and a half, get a legal pad and a pen. Do I have the pen? Yes. I almost always had a pen. I would be surprised if I didn't. It's a Pentel. RSVP. Fine too. This is like a magic wand to me because I realize that if I have a thought and I write it down, it's going from the thought world onto paper, which means I'm manifesting something. Everything starts in the subtle world and it grossifies. And we can bring thoughts into reality through manifestation of writing on paper. So what I suggest is get a legal pad because it gives you a little more room. Those are the yellow ones. They're a little bit longer than most pads. And then take some time just thinking. Get rid of your phone. Get rid of anything with an on-off switch. Just be by yourself. Put a do not disturb sign on your door. Go inwardly and start writing down your priorities. What's the topmost, or the 3 topmost, or the 10 topmost purposes of your life? What do you prioritize over everything else? Don't worry about whether you can achieve it immediately or not, but just write it down. Can you think about it just for a second right now when I'm saying it? Would you think about what you would put in your top 3 spaces? Does anybody have it? You don't have to say what they are, but are you thinking about it right now? What would go there? How does it feel? Yes.
Well, the first thing I realize is that when my top 3 cards there, I realize that I don't do them. My card, in reality, I clarify something else, even though they're not.
Fantastic. What a revelation. And then what he said, you write them down and think, well, why aren't I doing it, right? This means we start moving in a different direction, because by thinking about that, by having a target to go towards, we'll start moving in that direction. And it's a experiment that you can involve other people in your life. You could show them your list. Once you start to develop it, you can also move things around. But this is in the spirit of a Tata Brahma Jignasa, which means now is the time to inquire. And if you take a little time to think about what was your main priority, what do you value over everything else, and you put it down. Again, even if you can't do it right now, put it on paper, because then it starts to be in the forefront of your life just from writing it down. Magic. Use a pen and paper. Before I go to the next question, I'll just take a couple minutes to see if anybody has any reflection, which means that anything you've heard so far, a fragment, a thought that stuck with you. I can see we're poised to give you a microphone too. You'd be thereful. Anybody hear anything that you feel like you could give back to us? Yes. Mike?
I guess no, that
Here, Mike, you'd be like Martin. That's okay.
yeah, that concept of dharma really
The concept of Dharma, step Vicky.
very hard to what could be the best way to find that? Like, what's your
Yeah, what would be the best way to find it, what your Dharma is? And interestingly, it's the question. What is my purpose? It is so powerful, the question. It digs underneath many layers, and it calls to us the answer. Thank you.
And have one more?
I have a follow-up.
Yes, please.
So, just,
Go ahead.
sorry, just a follow-up question on that. When you ask the universe questions and the universe responds, how do you recognize it?
How do you recognize when you're hungry?
Feel the hunger.
You feel it, right? And how do you know when you're full? You just know, right? There's certain things that, because we're conscious, we can know things. That's really what consciousness needs. It's, in Sanskrit, we're called Kshetra Gyan. Kshetra means this is the field, and we're the knower of the field. So we can know our body. We can even notice our heart is beating and think, well, that's really interesting. I'm not my heart, but it's beating anyway. We can also wake up in the morning and realize, now I know I'm not sleeping. And how do I know that? How can you prove that you're not sleeping? You just know. And there are many things that you can know directly. And the path of spiritualization is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita as pratyaksha. It means that it's very direct. And that's why I give the example of eating. In fact, it's a famous verse in one of the books on bhakti that says spiritual realization is very much like eating. When you eat, you feel nourishment, satisfaction, and your hunger diminishes. And you don't need a certificate from anybody else. And in a similar way, when you get the answers to your questions, they're so satisfying and direct that you know for yourself they're fulfilling. It's not an intellectual exercise, but it's very direct to the heart, hearing and understanding. There's more to that. We can say more about it, but I'll stick with that for now, since we're in a very short session, because it's relatable, isn't it? That we can intuit things, we understand things directly. Yeah, it's the benefit of being a conscious being. We can know things. One more. We got a hat trick. Yes. Is that microphone on?
The sound system is on an iPad, so it changes. So you can't. It's okay.
Sorry, everybody. Okay, please go ahead. We can hear in here. It's not a problem. I'll repeat it for the people who are watching online. Just so. Oh, it's because it's going through this IPI using it. You say it, all would be it.
So I actually have provided in England's specific workshop based on
She led a workshop recently. Based on my book. Thank you.
so that
Zax.
what I found out was the group that I was in found it difficult to found this passion would be
The group you were in found it difficult to ask this question?
ask the question.
Yeah.
So most want to sit down and rap.
Yes.
Like I'm not that taken into
It's difficult.
yeah, how to make it was this
Model resistance.
another experience that before and I was just curious maybe like why?
Why is so difficult? That's such an excellent question, and it's my experience also. Not only with myself, but also teaching workshops on this and hearing from others about it is the hardest thing. Partly is because we don't have context. We're sort of thrown into this lifetime in the middle of something. And unless we develop some context of where we are, who we are, what the possibilities are, it's really hard to define a purpose. Because what kind of purpose? Make money, stay alive somehow, or be a nice person, and so forth. And that's where the Vedas come in. I mentioned them before. They're wisdom literatures that give us some context about what kind of place we're in. In fact, I'll give you an example. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's a verse in which the teacher, Krishna, is speaking to his student Arjuna, and he describes the world to be an upside down, we're in an upside down condition. And he gives an example of a banyan tree that is convoluted. Banyan trees have roots going up and branches down, and it's hard to tell. Some banyan trees are so large that you get lost in them. In fact, there's a place in Hawaii we used to go all the time. It's an ashram. And the banyan tree is the second largest banyan tree on the Hawaiian Islands. This property. And there's 2 living spaces inside the tree. It's so big. There's 2 apartments in the tree. In any case, it gives us this, Krishna gives this idea of the banyan tree. We don't know where it begins, where it ends, and we don't know our place in it. So we're in a universe that's so vast that we have very little way of understanding who we are, how we got here, and so forth. So in the process of asking, what's my purpose? One of the preliminary ways in which we may be aided is that what comes to us is more context, more information about who we are and how we got here in the first place. And why is it so hard to ask the question? Because it's frustrating. And when we don't have context to ask a question that seems futile, it seems like a strain. And this is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita also. Krishna uses these 3 words, raga, aya, krodha. He says there's 3 psychological anomalies that we all experience in the temporary physical world that we're part of as sentient beings. The first one is raga, which means irrational attachment to things which are temporary. The second one, bhaya, which means fear. We fear our own personality or our own individualized existence. Because we have so much experience of things coming and going and relationships coming and going, we then tend to shy away from individuality and think of spirituality as a kind of non-existence or merging into nothingness. And the third one is krodha, which is intellectual despair, which means that we've heard so many incomplete answers to our context in the universe and who we are and who we aren't and so forth, that we tend to then just despair and say, there is no answer. And in that state of mind, Rabbapai Krodha, asking, what is my purpose, can feel almost painful. So sometimes people avoid it or procrastinate asking that question. But in the right association, with the right permission and guidance, asking the question can be most edifying. And that's why I recommend starting with writing out your priorities. Priorities is a little lighter word, isn't it? If you say purpose, it's like, that's too big for me. But if you say, what's your priority right now in life? Then you can start asking, like, why do I have it in this order in the first place? And it starts the thought process. The question is the way it pulls the answers to us. And it may be hard work at first. Thank you for using the book. I really appreciate it. Okay, onward and upward. What do you say? The next ones are easier. Okay. I included this artwork. We had a great group of artists I worked with. It was just so much fun, the creative process, creating this book. And I had great artists that I worked with, and we were able to, anyway, I'll talk about that later. The next one is, how may I be of service? Everyone try saying that.
How may I be of service?
So there's a way in which the Vedas describe three paths. There's the path of service, the path of renunciation, the path of enjoyment. It's sort of graphically rendered here. And these three paths, it looks like the surface path is the highest. It's just going the hierarchy here. The idea is that our dharma has to do with giving and loving. We're by nature loving, and we want to give. Love is sort of an overflowing of gratitude. When you have gratitude, for instance, for someone in your life, you might think the next thing, what can I do for that person? Because out of sheer appreciation, have you ever had this? You just appreciated the person's spirit of giving to other people, or the fact that they have such high values and they stick to them, that you feel gratitude, and then you think, what could I give to that person, contribute, service? And so the path of renunciation is interesting, because oftentimes people think spiritual life means to give things up. But surprise answer to this idea is that we don't have anything to renounce, because nothing belongs to us in the first place. My teacher used to say, it's like walking in the Bank of America and making a declaration. I renounce this bank and all the money in it. And everyone's like, yeah. You can read now. So the whole universe, it's like an Uber. You get in an Uber and you don't have Ubers here, do you? Yeah.
I know.
So, huh?
I know.
They're not very good. Okay. Maybe this makes it better. You get in the Uber and they start saying, this is my car. They'll say, please get out. If you go to Airbnb, do you have those?
Yeah.
If you move in and you start painting or something like that, they'll ask you to move out. So there's a way in which the Vedas, the ancient wisdom literatures, talk about the universe as stopping over place. This is not ours. None of the stuff here is ours. And when we start getting possessive, and there's this phenomenon, that psychological phenomenon that has to do with pendulum sway. It's called bhoga and tyaga. You want to try it? Bhoga? Tyaga. So here's how it works. Bhoga means I want to keep as many things in this world as possible and try to get as much out of them as possible. And then when it doesn't work out, which is always, then I go to the other extreme, which is let's get rid of everything. So there's two philosophical points based on these polar opposites. Enjoy the world, give up the world. But neither of them work. You just keep going back and forth. But there's a middle path that works, because it aligns with our dharma, our nature, which is how may I be of service? That way, you look at everything in the universe and you see through eyes of service that everything in the world is paraphernalia to be used in service for a higher cause. And when I have this, then I can live in the world without touching anything. This is an example that's given in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna. He gives the example of a lotus. Lotus is called Padmaja. Ja means to be born, and Padma means mud. It grows out of mud at the bottom of a pond. It lives in the water, but it's never touched by water. Lotus leaf, water comes on it, rolls right off. The same way, when we have this mood that everything is in this world to use in divine service as bhakti, then we don't become entangled with anything. The minute I start thinking that's mine, for instance, bank teller, go back to the bank. Bank teller's counting money all day long, right? But she doesn't think, this is mine. Correct? But if she just happens to take 10-pound note off the top, that's okay, right? The correct answer is no, Vaisesika. Wrong, bad. You can't take 10 pounds off the top. So we can't take anything off the top in this world. It all belongs to somebody else. However, we can use it all in service. And when we use it in service, we feel completely fulfilled. So that's the power of this question. How may I be of service? In any situation, if you want to become an insider, you ask this question. Another example. Let's say you go to, somebody invites you to a wedding. You don't know everybody there. Everybody in this kind of scenario, get invited somewhere, you go there and you feel like, who am I going to talk to? Maybe the person who opens the door, because I don't know anybody else. So then, let's say you see over in the corner some people still getting ready for the wedding. They're moving chairs. And you saunter over there and you say, hey, can I help you move the chairs? And they go, yeah, thank you. And you start moving chairs with them. Now everybody else who walks in, they go like, yeah, that person belongs here because they're engaged in the service. And that you become an instant insider as soon as you grab some service. And so the sages say that we're in a universe. We feel disoriented. And the way to find our grounding right away is to ask, how may I be of service here? And as soon as you start in the service mind and engaging in service, then you become an insider in the universe. It moves your position. So the question is such that it takes us out of this sense of dissatisfaction. And the sages say that we feel dissatisfied when we forget service mind. And we think, why aren't I being served enough? Have you ever been in a situation where you thought this service is really bad? And you thought, what's wrong with these people? I don't know. Pretty sure. As soon as we start thinking like that, we feel dissatisfied. But when we think, how may I be of service? And we come back into the service mind, then immediately we're connected. With that screw, it gets back in the machine. We feel whole again. We're connected with our Dharma. So here's another journal prompt. It just came up by chance. I had no idea how it got here. Perform an anonymous act of service for someone, no matter how small. Don't seek credit for doing it. Who would like to try this? Not right now necessarily, but how does it sit with you just hearing this? I'm going to read it again. Let's listen and think about what you might do later. Perform an anonymous act of service for someone, no matter how small it is. Don't seek credit for doing it. What do you think? Reaction? Yes, what do you think?
I think it's a very good idea.
Why?
Because then you're not thinking about, you're not thinking about getting any reward for it. You're just doing it and saying, I feel.
I love how you think. And it's just so dharmic. This is what the sages say. This is our natural state. When we think, what's your name?
Right.
Ryan, I'm Vice. When you think like Ryan, and you think, let me do something selfless, some selfless service, and I don't want any reward for it. And it's not like doubling back. I don't want any reward for it, so people notice I don't want to reward for it. The ego is so tricky, it's like might circle back. It's like, yeah, but you're going to get credit for that too, right? If we're able, say the sages, to step out of the center and just be in the pure service mode, that's when we're happy. And so if you do this, you might confront your own ego and find out that, wow, that ego is always following me everywhere and usurping everything I want to do because it wants credit for everything. I was talking to a manager earlier today, just about the best managers are ones that don't try to take credit for everything, as they slow everything down because they have to have their stamp on it. If they really want to empower other people and they're doing service for service, everything flows naturally. So this is one of those questions you can ask yourself, how may I be of service? That it flips a switch. You move out of the external position in the material world and you move as an insider in this world. And especially if you think like you do, like, I don't want reward for it. Feel the flow for yourself. It's very practical. You can do it at any time. Okay. Let's see. Here's the next one. This is, I have to warn you, it's a little hard. Okay, so brace yourselves. But it's extremely powerful. Ready for it? Keep going? Yes. You sure? Yes. Okay, you told me to keep going. What is the lesson? Default mode. Why me? Why me? Why am I being forced to suffer or have a reversal in my life? That's the opposite question. And it's a default mode. When something happens that seems unfortunate, seems like against my plan, then I might ask that question. Resist it. Go for this question instead. What's the lesson? Everyone say, what's the best? It's the hardest thing to do when you're suffering. When you experience a reversal, you'll find that it takes a Herculean strength of will to utter this question into your environment and say, what is the lesson? What am I going to learn from this? But the sages say that this is the number one question for adjusting our attitude for liberation. To become free and fully spiritual. If you take the universe as a classroom and see that everything that's happening here is meant to bring me to my fullest consciousness and my fullest potential, then we're not disturbed by reversals. Or even if we are disturbed by them, we learn from them because failure becomes the pillar to success. And here's an admonition that I like to live by. Just because things are out of our control doesn't mean they're out of control. In other words, conception of the sages is Om Kornam Adap Kornamina, means everything's happening for a reason. We may not know what the reason is, and it may be outside our knowledge because of our limited context. However, if we understand that there's an order to the universe and everything's meant to bring us to a higher potential, this is the means by which we use everything that happens to us in our life to grow. Be a learner. That's the sage's direction to us. Problems are gifts. Do you ever think of problems as a gift? Not so much? Yeah, in this mindset, by asking the question, what's the lesson? And we give another seminar on a very interesting topic, frustration, the doorway to insight. And I'll tell you just briefly where this comes from. My teacher talks about how when we're frustrated, it's because of our natural sense of incongruity with the material world. The material world is clunky, and we're not. We're aesthetic, and we're extremely subtle. As spiritual beings, we're sentient. We're a different energy from this world. So while we're in this body, no matter what you do, it never works out. Because it can't. It's different energy than us. Things here in the world are always in a state of disintegration. That's why the world's called bhava. Bhava means everything you're thinking about grabbing onto, it's changing before you even grab it. And you can't possess anything because it's morphing into something else in this world. It's extremely frustrating. However, it becomes a doorway to insight when we're curious about it. Why am I frustrated? That shows us the dichotomy between us and the very gross material world. These are sutra-like sayings I'm saying without going into the details. But here's one of my favorite sayings is failure is the pillar to success. Try this one on for size. Go ahead. It's known by people who are progressive in many realms nowadays, fail forward fast, and so forth. But if you take this up as part of your philosophy in life, you'll find unlimited growth. Journal prompt. Think of a frustrating or difficult problem in your life. Is that hard for you? it isn't going to come stay with you. Imagine that that problem is a friend and is sitting across from you. Have a conversation with your new friend to understand their perspective. Express yourself and uncover the lesson. What do you think? Could you do that? Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
You could do it. Definitely. It's objectifies the whole thing, right? It's like, hey, what are you trying to teach me, right? Yeah. Okay. I'm moving on to the next one, because I'm conscious of time and how it's moving on and almost to the end. This one, easy breezy. You could take it with you wherever you go. If you want, get a tattoo of this on your arm on the way home, or even on your neck if you want. And keep it in front of you wherever you go. Keep asking this question all day long. It will save you. It's where am I investing my attention right now? The words are deliberate. Let's say it together. Where am I investing my attention right now? Here's another one for you. Where attention goes, energy flows. Try that. We're units of consciousness. And our greatest asset, or I'll go out on a limb and say our only real asset, is our attention and where we're pointing it at any given moment. And if you want to have what do they call it when you're watching GPS and you take a wrong turn and it recalibrates, right? What's that called? Rerouting. Yeah, if you want to reroute in your life, you ask this question. And there's this concept of ROI, which means return on investment with your money. It's consequential. Study finance and you realize every day matters and every little percentage matters, right? And compounded interest, one of the great wonders of the world. It's the same thing with attention, with our attention. It's more valuable than money because wherever you're placing your attention, you're investing yourself because you're going to go there. And so you have to ask, what's your return on attention? And that's called RO. That's right, not ROI, but ROA. What's your return on attention? My friend says anybody here does anybody here have a smartphone? Has anybody here ever used their thumb when they're looking at it and gone like this and found themselves stuck for a little while looking at it? Does this look familiar? Does this profile look familiar? Every street corner in the world, what is this called? Scrolling. Scrolling means random. I don't really have a purpose, and there's no investment. It's like I saw a guy in the train in New York City. I couldn't believe what he was eating. Well, I won't go into the details. Spare you the details. But I couldn't perceive any nutritional value for it. So the same way, it's consequential what we take in, where we place our attention. We're investing in that. That's our main asset, and we're investing it. If you throw it away down a hole somewhere, or you just randomly look at things, then you don't get a good return. You'll be broke. And if you feel frustrated and lost, it's because of lack of intelligent investing of your attention. So your level of contentment depends on your content. How about that one? Content, content. They're spelled the same way. Whatever you take in by applying your attention, that's yours. It's going inside you. You're going to keep it. Okay, Ricky and his mice. Ricky Masato was my friend in grammar school, Burton School. You ever heard about that? And so Ricky had an experiment. He had two mice. They started same weight, same size, fine-looking mice. They're actually rats, but they named it put mice in here. So Ricky gave one of them this amazing diet, all seeds and fresh organic vegetables, and the other one, he gave him the diet that he was eating at home, which was basically white bread. White bread. And after a few weeks, Ricky freaked out because he said, now I look like that. And now I know why I look like that scrawny little bat who was only eating white bread. And by the way, he gave them both very nourishing food after that, and they both ended up being super rats. And Ricky changed his diet, and he also became a very healthy-looking fellow. But It sounds almost too obvious to point out, but whatever content we're taking in, we keep it. So finally, in these 4 questions, I talk about the power of spiritual sound vibration. Best kind of investment is to find a source of sound that comes from the highest realm. Every realm in the world, every organization you go to is defined by its soundtrack. And in the process of bhakti yoga, the means by which we elevate our consciousness to the highest level is by adjusting that soundtrack. And therefore, the sages advocate practicing mantra meditation. That's the meditation on sound vibration. You hear this Hare Krishna Maha mantra. We go from mindlessness to mindfulness. And your journal prompt is think of someone who deserves your full attention. Write down 3 ways you can give that person their full attention. Now I'll just take a few reflections. Abbreviated version of today's talk, but you have to give me 3 things back that you heard so far. Your mark, get set, reflect. Anything you heard that you're taking with you, whether resonating. Yes. Question mark is the most powerful punctuation mark in any language. If you keep that in mind, there's a lot more to say about it, about what the question mark does, and it becomes the emblem for us moving forward on the spiritual path. It starts a quest for the topmost kind of consciousness, and we can employ it as human beings. 2 more, and you're free to move about the universe. Yes.
Definitely where attention goes, energy flows.
You like it?
Yeah.
Yeah, kindred souls. Because as soon as I heard that, like 40 years ago, I said, that's mine for life. Freak it out. I ask it all the time. Thank you. What do you like about it, by the way? What resonates with you?
The idea that our attention is really our only currency that we actually.
I like to re-put a currency. Attention is our only currency. If you think about that, we only have a limited amount of time to apply our attention somewhere. And I didn't go into it, and it's sort of alluded to this one of these last slides. As far as relationships go, I love this concept because oftentimes we give partial attention to people that, even people we love. They can be talking to us and we're not paying it full attention to them. Try this experiment. The next time you're talking to somebody, whoever it might be, just practice giving them full attention, 100%, and watch how the interaction changes. And for those you're related to, watch how the relationship changes. It can change in a moment by giving full attention. Thank you, remember. What's your name?
Bill.
Bill, nice to meet you. Pleasure. One more.
Any question?
Yes, please.
Write down a thing allocator.
Yes.
So write down the thing you want to achieve or to be happy.
Oh, yes.
In making you already happy.
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's the most powerful tool for human beings.
I know her question.
Yes.
I read on Gong is your work.
You can, but there's something visceral about writing with ink and writing on paper. You see your own handwriting and so forth. There's also with phones, smartphones tend to have other features, to say the least, and we can get distracted. And there's something about being more dependent on this is very high technology actually, but it's singular, and you can only do what comes from here onto the paper. Whereas the phone, now especially with AI, it can all of a sudden, well, let's just run it through the AI and see what he thinks here. And then next thing you know, you're lost in another unlimited I'm not against technology, by the way, and use it, but I'm just saying for this experiment, I highly recommend quiet place, no disturbance, no other stimuli, just you and your mind and heart, pen and paper, and just see what comes out. Just try it. That was 3, right? Now we can chant a little bit, according to the direction of the seventh. Can we chant?